Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the paddock. We've got a hot one for you today, and by that I mean we will be discussing some of our F1 hot takes. On the episode today, we have Ito, Amy, Mel, Chelsea behind the scenes, and myself, Rachel. Disclaimer, these are our opinions, they are not fact, they are not gospel. Please take them with a grain of salt. And what better way to start a hot takes episode than to just dive right in with some driver hot takes? So, in my opinion, the drivers that get the most backlash or hate are the five non Euro or Australian drivers: Logan, American; Lance, Canadian; Checo, Mexican; and Joe, Chinese; and Yuki, Japanese. If you look at it like objectively, they really aren't bad drivers. But if they make one tiny mistake, they're absolutely torn apart by the media and the fans. Now, to that point, Logan seems to be bearing the brunt of this since he entered F1. Like, currently, he seems to be getting the most hate. But if you look at his record, and we did a spotlight on him last season, episode 82, go check it out, he's a decent driver. He was brought up into F1 way too soon by a team principal who promptly left, and he wasn't given much time in an F1 car before his first GP. This year, he and Alex were both having issues with their steering wheels at the beginning of the season. His car is usually running on older parts, with any upgrades going to Alex first, which makes sense. I will not argue with you there. However, they rarely make it onto Logan's car. He barely has all of the 2024 parts. He literally had his car taken from him in Australia for something he had no part in. And in Monaco this year, he was running with the 2023 rear wing and a different floor setup. And in Monaco last year, it was the first time he had ever driven an F1 car in the wet, in the rain. He constantly just gets the short straw and whatever backlash comes with it. And I very rarely see people actually look into what really happened or what specs he's running on. And how can you expect him to do as well as Alex if he's running with a 2023 rear wing and a different floor setup? And honestly, all things considered, he's doing the best with what he's being given. And don't come at me with that's just the nature of the sport, it's cutthroat BS, because it is a cheap cop-out to justify hate towards a driver you don't like. Why should any driver be punished for the mistakes of the team? And that goes for Red Bull era Gasly and Albon as well. And like I said last week, this is a hill I will die on. Rant over.
Period, Rachel. And I agree with you on your take on Logan because, like, give the kid a fair chance to show what he's got. There's a reason why he made it into the sport. We deserve to see his full potential, and it sucks because he gets the crappy end of everything. And also, I think teams just really need to think about bringing rookies onto their teams too early on. It can just mess them up mentally, career wise, all that. But on Logan, I will be upset if he's not on the grid for next year. I know it might be the reality of it, so I'm trying to not think about it. But like I've said it multiple times in the past, it is so nice to have an American driver on the grid to represent the United States because, hey, it's nice to root for your home country. Hello.
All I'm going to say regarding non European slash Australian drivers getting, dare I say, shit, is that the last time we had a non European podium, period, was Suzuka in 1990. That shows you how Eurocentric and, dare I say, Australian centric to an extent, because we love our Danny, we love our Oscar, we loved our Mark. F1 is.
Literally, the last time was a year before I was born. Almost 33, 34 years ago. Crazy to think about. Insane. I don't want to talk about that. Anyways, I know we have a lot of Danny Rick girlies on the pod. They're my besties and I love them dearly. Again, I'm sorry, but I think his time on the grid is up. Is he a good driver? Sure, he is a race winner. I can't discredit that. But I feel after his McLaren run, it's just not the same. It's not the same Danny Rick. Granted, I am a new fan, or a fairly new fan of the sport, so I never got to see the Red Bull era just in Drive to Survive, and I know that was a whole different Danny Rick. Um, but things happen, and I also feel like Red Bull has him just as a PR move to kind of help the image of their team with everything that has happened in the past. But we all love the guy. I truly love the guy. Like, he seems like a fun guy. I would love to hang out with him and have like a beer too. And he's a guy I would trust my drink with.
So, obviously, if you have been listening to PGP for a while, you know that I am like the resident Danny Rick girl. So, this is my Danny hot take. And some people may come for my neck for this. I really, really don't care. This has just been floating in my head for a while. So I feel like why not just put it out in the open? And this is my take. Danny was always meant to replace Nick halfway through the season last year. There literally was a statement that Zach Brown put out saying all our financial agreements have come to an end, which just makes me think that there was like a 6-month non-compete clause that Danny had in his contract, which is why it took until midway through the season for him to get in the seat, because he always said when he was back in an F1 car. It was never if, it was always when, which just makes me question how much of all of this was planned, which if it was, my heart absolutely shatters for Nick, because that's just like shady unless Nick knew about it. But if Nick knew about it, like why the heck would you sign that contract for 6 months in a car to then get pulled out because it just makes you look bad? But like that is my personal DR take. Take it with a grain of salt and a shot of tequila.
Honestly, I agree with all of this so much. On one hand, Danny leaving RB in 2018 for Renault was such a mistake in retrospect, and all, in my opinion, because he wanted to be first driver. And he was never going to be that at Red Bull when Max was around. Then again, did Horner hiring him as a third driver and then him replacing Nick, totally on the same page, Amy, by the way. I totally see the 6 months non-compete with Zach Brown. Like, after that statement came out, I was like, yes, it all makes sense now. I agree, like, Horner hiring him helped his mental health that Zach Brown sadly destroyed. But I still don't think it's enough, because, dare I say, the stench of Horner hired you because you are marketing gold is still kind of clinging to him. And that can't be good at the end of the day for him or his mental health or his prospects with other teams too. Even though his driving has improved recently, and I so hope that it will continue to improve and he might get a seat next year, but I'm not too hopeful.
Now, I may piss off some Ferrari girlies with this take, specifically the Charles fans. I'm so sorry, y'all. But, like, I gotta say it. But Charles' undying love for Ferrari will be his undoing in some way, shape, or form. I really hope that the car improves. I know every Ferrari fan is hoping that the car improves in the next few years, but F1 fans have been waiting for Ferrari to improve for years. And I think if Charles was willing to look elsewhere on the grid, that man would be snatched up so fast his head would spin by a better team where he'd be on podiums much more frequently. There wouldn't be the same kinds of headaches that he gets at Ferrari, but he is just like almost too loyal, dare I say?
Amy, you're so right. We've been waiting since 2007. But as a Charles girly and as a Ferrari girly, separately, I wish, sincerely, that these two wouldn't fit together so well. Like, especially from a marketing and lore perspective. Because that would make it easier to accept something like this. Because, let's be real, he would rock at another team. But because of the invisible strings tying him to Maranello, tying him to Ferrari, it is hard to imagine him elsewhere, even if it would most likely be better for him, especially when you consider the Binotto years. Though I do have hopes now that Fred will make all the difference. Because, I mean, he already made so many changes, and this year is the first full year we'll see of Fred as team principal, and it's already looking good. So, fingers crossed.
The only thing I'm going to say on this is that the last time Ferrari was absolutely killing it was when they had a French team principal, Jean Todt. So in Fred Vasseur, we trust.
I mean, can I get an amen? Because seriously. But I am going to upset some people some more because it's a hot takes app. And what do you expect from me? I'm coming for your head, George William Russell. Sorry, not sorry, my man. But George genuinely thinks that he is going to be the driver to save Mercedes. And I'm sorry, my guy, but you are not that good. Nor will you ever pull a big enough fan base to right that ship. I'm sorry, but you know I'm right. I can literally see all the girls shaking their heads. And it's like, I'm sorry, but it's true. He comes across, to me at least, very whiny. And some of the ways that he's fought Lewis in current races has definitely made me raise an eyebrow more than once. I don't know. He isn't as hot as he thinks he is. Like, I'm sorry, George. I'm sorry, but I'm really sorry, not sorry, Princess Georgie. Like, if the shoe fits, man, I just don't see him riding the ship and pulling in the fan base that they need, like, ever.
Honestly, all of this. And it's funny, actually, because not 48 hours ago, I saw someone say something very similar online. But their reasoning was that Mercedes doesn't realize that they don't have a very large, true fan base like Ferrari does. Rather, they have people that followed drivers and are fans by association. Meaning that when Lewis leaves next year, most of their fan base will disappear. Because, let's be real, Lewis fans are some of the most vocal fans in the F1 world, good or bad. And them being Merc, not realizing that it is Lewis that pulls everyone to Merc, and therefore thinking that George can just absorb those fans is a huge mistake. Because their fan base will maybe be 50% if they're lucky. And honestly, as a Mercedes girly, to an extent, it is because of Lewis. And prior to 2017, because of Nico, but we'll let that slide. I see this happening. In my eyes, the best quality as a team they ever had was Niki Lauda. And now, as a team, dare I say, it's the good merch that keeps me sticking around for them as a team. It's not the drivers, per se.
Now, we all know the minute Mercedes has Kimi Antonelli on the team, George is going to be a second thought, and that's it. Again, he's a great driver. He's won a race, so I can't, again, discredit that, but it's a race. But I just don't know where that, like, massive ego came from, and it's kind of annoying, especially, again, when he battles with Lewis. It's like, just follow the orders. Just drive the damn car. And it gets really annoying. And like Amy said, it gets super whiny. And every single time something happens that he doesn't take the blame or he just makes up some excuse, like, I just don't like him more. And I really want to. So yeah, Mercedes is definitely going to lose a lot of that fan base because Team LH, they're low-key a cult. And they don't play.
I just was thinking about this. I I'm a little scared now to see what happens when the Lewis Hamilton fans and the Ferrari fans combine. I genuinely think they could take over the world. It's kind of terrifying. But, and this pun is intended, shifting gears, we're going to move on to some team or team principal hot takes. And I feel like I'm going to make a lot of people really mad with this, but in my opinion, Gunter was a terrible team principal. The writing is on the wall. Haas is doing far better this season than they have since 2018 when they placed 5th in the constructors. They're currently 7th, and we still have like 3/4 of the season to go. Now, with that being said, with how Kevin Magnussen has been driving, we'll see. But I have faith in Nico getting points. Kevin, I have faith in getting a race ban.
Yeah, he was terrible. I, to this day, will always say that I really think he only stayed with the team for so long, again, as a PR move, due to the fan base or the popularity he gained from Drive to Survive. He's a funny guy on that show. I can't not say that. He's hilarious. But again, after he and the team treated Mick Schumacher, no. He has a target on his back, and he should watch out. That's all I'm going to say. Also, Haas, baby, your time's up. For an American team, there's nothing that screams USA in them. They're more of a European team than a US team. And I just wish they would sell the damn team to Andretti so we can get a true American team and move on. And that's on that. Because we're going to go into another hot mess of a team principal, in my opinion. Binotto, another one that has a target on his back. Okay? He was a hot mess. He was just messing up with strategy, and I just feel like he didn't back his drivers up at all. I'll just never forget that picture. I forgot what race it was that there's a picture of him and Charles. I think it was the one where Carlos won, I think. And he's just like pointing his finger at him, like scolding him. And I was just like, how are you going to treat your own drivers like this? Like, they need to perform well so you can keep a job, which clearly didn't work out for him. But I'm glad that Fred is our team principal now, and how much the team has improved. Again, if Fred we trust, I love my little French bald man. I will love him till the end of time as of right now.
I mean, who doesn't remember Silverstone 22 when Carlos won and Binotto basically yelled at Charles afterwards? Like, really? My guy? Really? So, hence, hard agreement on the Binotto take on this one. I mean, they literally threw away a lead in 2022. Like, they were leading constructors. They were leading drivers' championship. They were leading everything. And it was just hard to watch. And while it might not have been wholly his fault, as the team principal, he's the one responsible. He's the man at the top. And as I said, that video of him yelling at Charles, him yelling at the son of Maranello, as they call him, just no. Just no. I could go on for hours on this, but that's where I'm going to leave it at.
Now, I am back with yet another Ferrari hot take because they're just deserving. Ferrari, please get your ish together. We've been begging you since we started this podcast. Please just take the hint. But Ferrari really needs to embrace the modern aspects of the sport and drop this whole you race for Ferrari first and yourself second mindset, because honestly, they're never going to win another WDC if they keep doing this. They also really still need to finish cleaning house from some of the not so great hires that Mattia made. Désolé, Fred. I'm sorry you have to deal with his absolute dumpster fire that he created, but we have faith in you. We know that you can do it. Je t'aime, je t'aime, je t'aime. You will make this happen. It's fine.
We just gotta let Fred cook, which he has been like since the end of last year, to be honest. But moving on, in my opinion, I don't think there should be any sister teams. Red Bull, Oracle Racing, and VCAR Visa buy one, get one free. I'm looking at you. I feel like it's just really messy, especially since Horner pretty much controls both of the teams. The last season of DTS, there was a scene where they were talking about Nick's contract, and I forgot what he said exactly, but pretty much like no one fought with him on the subject. And I was just like, you're supposed to be only in charge of one team, not both. Like, what's the point of VCarb having the team principal and everything if Horner just runs the ships? I have my own feelings about the man. So that's why I feel a certain way too.
Yeah, hard agree. Not only does Horner basically control both teams, their drivers' contracts basically make it so Red Bull can kind of play musical seats throughout the season. If I recall correctly, they aren't like contracted to Oracle Red Bull Racing or VCarb. They're just Red Bull drivers. And since both teams are owned by Red Bull, they can just do a little switcheroo around however they may please. It's complete BS in my opinion. Like it just feels really icky.
Honestly, the whole Red Bull VCarb situation is what makes me glad the 4 drivers per team per season rule exists, as at least that limits the switcheroos they can do. But still, teams shouldn't be able to just loan, as they called it when Danny Rick replaced Nick, to loan out drivers to each other, especially to the competition, essentially. And especially also for more than like a race. And even then, it should only be because a driver is, say, sick, like George stepping up to Mark from Williams in 2020 when Lewis had COVID. Like, other than that, there should not be a reason for a driver from one team to replace a driver from another on any team in any way.
And now that we're talking about Lewis and George, Mercedes, Toto, what has been the deal with y'all suddenly treating Lewis so differently when compared to George? I get it. The man, as in Lewis, has signed to Ferrari for next year, but there's still a year left, a whole season to still work together. Like, come on. The reality is the team is where they are because of Lewis, or else they probably would have been long gone. And who knows what's going to happen after next year, in a few years. It's been a pretty nasty downfall to watch, if you ask me.
But, like, no, seriously, Mel. Like, the way that Mercedes and Toto have been treating Lewis has truly been a massive neon light red flag. It's just chaos. And the way that everything went downhill for them when they stopped listening to Lewis tells me everything I really need to know. Like, dare I say it? Are we seeing the downfall of Toto? Like, I love him. He's an Austrian like myself. But, like, I'm questioning some of these choices. I'm questioning the way he's running the team, if the environment is becoming as toxic as it appears on the outside, at least. I don't even want to know what it's like from, like, an inside perspective, because if it looks bad to fans, it's got to be even worse in real life. And anybody who's been in a toxic work environment knows how bad and miserable that can be. My big thing is that I think that Toto is kind of forgetting the fact that most of their fan base are majority Lewis fans. Like, Mercedes is not McLaren or Ferrari, where, like, fans don't really care who is driving for the team. They just care about the team. I personally cannot wait to see what the Mercedes fan base looks like when Lewis has finally left, because from a PR perspective, they've done a kind of crappy job of trying to keep their existing fan base. Not to mention the car issues. I literally look at them and I cannot see them holding on to any single one of Lewis's Mercedes era fans come the end of this season, because we all know that Georgie Boy is not going to pull that, like, original Mercedes fan base back in. It's just it's apples to oranges. You cannot compare Lewis and George in terms of the kind of fans that they pull and the volume of fans that they pull. Talking about the Lewis fans, they are definitely very cult-like. I mean that with all sorts of love and affection. LH44 fans, like, y'all ride for your man, and it's kind of iconic. But I am also extremely scared to see what happens when they merge with the Tifosi, because either you're going to have infighting or it's just going to be complete and utter world domination. And I don't think anybody is ready for that. So hold on to your hats, folks.
1000%. I feel like I kind of called it last season that Mercedes was shifting their focus to George over Lewis, especially after he won in Brazil in 2022. It felt like they were basically kind of driving Lewis out at that point. Like, at the time, I thought, like, oh, Lewis is just going to retire. Like, he's won his 7. Mercedes is going downhill. Like, and I don't think anybody saw him moving to a different team. Like, at all. And yeah, Lewis has literally almost double the Instagram followers of Mercedes and George combined. The PR nightmare that has already started is only going to get worse, and it will not end well for Mercedes. And I find it really interesting because watching their fans fall off is going to be like watching their fall from grace after the cost cap was introduced and they couldn't spend triple the next 3 teams on their development. Now, with that extremely hot take, moving into races. In my opinion, I think that just about any race is a good race, even if the same person is winning every time. I don't know, I find watching the midfield just as exciting, if not more exciting than watching the front runners. The midfield has higher stakes because literally every point counts. Like, every point counts. And there are so many more overtakes and close calls. Alex's double overtake in Canada, are you kidding? Incredible. Incredible. The only races that I think actually qualify as boring are one where there's not really any overtaking, there's no risky pit stops being made, and even then, there are exceptions to those. Was Monaco this year kind of boring after that red flag in lap 1? Sure. But the emotion behind Charles finally winning his home race after so many tries completely made up for what was not a super exciting race. I will say, also, as a Ferrari fan and Charles fan and having a best friend who's a massive Charles fan, the anxiety I felt, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop with that just because of the history. Not to mention the fact that George did 68 laps on medium tires in that race. What? I don't know how that's possible.
Yeah, I agree. The midfield battles have been more fun to watch recently. I love me a good overtake, like you mentioned, Rach, the Canadian GP. Why didn't watch it? I did see that highlight of that overtake, and yeah, that was so satisfying to watch. I love a good moment like that. And honestly, I like to watch stuff like that instead of a replay of the start 20 different times from 20 different angles. I do not care after like 2 replays. Let's keep it going. Let's show me other overtakes. Show me other stuff. What driver went off. I don't care. Give me something besides how someone led the race. Because right now we've been having different pole sitters too. So that's been kind of fun. But going on from the races and everything, can we keep the historical tracks? Like, what is with all these new tracks being street circuits? I just feel like it takes away from the element of racing. And in my opinion, it makes the race kind of boring to me. I find the ones that are like at Silverstone, Monza, all that to be more exciting and the history behind it. And there's just like so many like tracks in Europe that they can race at, like Turkey, Portugal, France, to name a few. I'm probably missing a bunch more. And I just don't like feeling like we're going in the direction of only street circuits. I just feel like it's a nuisance at the same time for the city that takes place. I get it. It's money. It is what it is. And while we're talking about tracks, I don't think we need more than 2 races in the US, maybe 3. We can definitely keep COTA, dare I say Vegas, even Miami. I feel like more than that's kind of like overkill because I get it, we're a big country, but there's so much more places we can go. There's South America besides Brazil. There's other countries. There's South Africa, please. I would love an excuse to go there. I can keep going on about this subject because I want to have a reason to travel.
Well, I love Melissa's ideas of bringing back some tracks. Please, can we bring back Porto? Because I love watching the old races in Portugal. I will happily find an excuse to go to Portugal and watch Vrooms because duh. Now, my hot take that I'm starting with isn't necessarily race specific per se. It's more spec specific. I really would love to bring back the 2.4 V8 engines. Those races were just always so spicy. I feel like there could be a really cool way to do it in an energy efficient way. There is that like cool energy efficient fuel and stuff that's out there. Like, I know we've got Formula E to be that really like energy specific thing. I mean, it's kind of in the name, but I like the sound of the V8s. I'm a car girl. I like a good like roar. I just want a little bit more oomph and less whine. But that just might be my own personal hot take. I hate the way the current cars sound. They just sound kind of crap to me. But that's just my own issue. Now, if I'm going to do a more race weekend specific hot take, it is the fact that I absolutely despise the current sprint format. Bring back the old one, please. It added so much more drama and effect to the whole race weekend. The current format just only adds an opportunity for people to get points. It doesn't impact anything. It almost feels like it's its own mini race weekend. I love when it was a sprint weekend and you had somebody who managed to put it on pole in the sprint and they're starting the race on pole, and it's like somebody from the back of the grid, a la Kevin Magnussen, where he started a race from P1 because he finished the sprint somehow in P1. And it's just like, yes, add a little bit of chaos. I also would love to see the concept of a reverse grid where you do a sprint and you do a reverse grid to start the race, and just absolute chaos. Imagine the back of the grid starting at the front of the grid of like Silverstone, and just think about the complete and utter madness that would occur. I would pay good money to see that live and in person. I don't care what the cost is, to be really honest. I will happily go see it.
All of this. While I do think the updated sprint format for this year is better than whatever last year was, due to the change Park Ferme rules, making it so teams can actually go somewhat all out for the sprint still, I still think it isn't as fun as it could be. Like, as Amy said, did I love Brazil 2022 with Kevin? Yes. Like, did I love that excitement of his in the garage? Yes. And I think things like this could be achieved with, say, a reverse grid. I mean, F2 does it. F3 does it. Why not F1? Come on.
Now, I cannot take credit for this hot take, but I was down the Reddit rabbit hole and I had to include this take because I need to see this happen in real life. Please, I'm like praying to the F1 gods that we can make this a thing. This would just be the greatest thing to ever occur to Formula One. And that is the fact that they should race Monaco in carts and have like little items that they can throw at their opponents like a banana peel. And the take on Reddit suggested maybe dressing up in cosplay as their favorite video game character. I wouldn't go that far, but like give them things to chuck at each other. Heck, I would even take driver replacements if, say, like Max doesn't want to do it. Put David Coulthard in the car. Oscar Piastri doesn't want to do it. Mark Webber. Like, pull in the most obscure other people. If current drivers don't want to do it, give me Jolyon Palmer in a cart, just for the fun. But also mic him up, please, because that man on a hot mic in something like this would be next level good. Maybe even mic up David Coulthard because he's going to say something out of pocket. It made my mind start racing and I had to put it in there.
Honestly, this would be so much fun. Especially, can you imagine the older drivers that haven't karted in years or even decades doing this? Like, can you imagine El Lewis in a kart? Oh my god. Like, I mean, Fernando would rock it because he still karts sometimes. I mean, did we see that double kart situation over Winter Brave last year? But if they don't want to do karts in Monaco, and if the replacement driver situation is a no-go, what about specific Monaco cars that are smaller? Maybe even a hybrid situation that is something between what they run at the Monaco Classic and the modern car. Just a thought. But the Mario Kart idea definitely sounds like fun, and something Lando would run with.
Lando and Alex, I feel like, would both like absolutely run with that. I mean, where was that one track that was proposed with like the 120 something story corner that's basically Rainbow Road? Anyway, someone please call Kimi Räikkönen and get him in a kart in Monaco with just please. That would be so funny. And with regards to costumes, Charles could totally wear his banana costume. Now he has another reason to wear it.
The minute Amy mentioned Mario Kart, I know Lewis would be in the Toad outfit. George, Princess Peach. Right then and there. I can see it. Max would probably be like Bowser. And then, just for the sake of Ferrari in the future lineup, Charles would be Luigi. Thank you. Let me know if you want more help, drivers, in case if it happens.
All I have to add to that is Danny as Yoshi, because yes. Now, well, we could absolutely theorize about Monaco Mario Kart's version race and who would be what characters and who we would want on that grid. We've got to get into some of the fandoms and just some more like random hot takes that we've got. Now, I am going to start with one, and that is the fact that people need to remember that Formula One has changed so much over the years that comparing records is literally almost useless. I love seeing all of the big name drivers' records, but comparing Max to someone like Michael Schumacher when literally everything about their seasons, the car, the tracks, the tires, literally everything was different. It's really giving apples to oranges, people. And some fans will really like to dig their heels in and say that Max is not as good as Michael. And it's like, well, you don't know that because like if we put Max in Michael's car, like we don't know what's going to happen. He could absolutely kick ass. But it's just the records, yes, the numbers might be the same, but all of the specific details that led to all of those records are completely different. And I just think it's kind of silly to try to compare them sometimes.
No, 100%. The number of races has changed. The cars alone, like you said, are completely different. And I don't even want to say drastically. They're completely different. There's no real way to make comparison. There's so much nuance to all of these records now. And I mean, we've got a 24 race season this year. That's absurd. I feel like you're right. It's like comparing apples to oranges. There is no real way to be like, oh, this person's the best. I like to say that, like, Michael Schumacher was the best in his time. Lewis Hamilton is the best in his time. Max Verstappen is the best. Like, they're all different. None of them are the same. None of them are driving this. Like, there's too much nuance.
And speaking of too much, there's definitely too much fandoms on the social media that really irk the heck out of me. And I can see why some people don't like those fans or take them seriously. Like, it's just penny drivers against one another, fans against one another. And it's just like unnecessary drama. And I'll just never forget. I mean, good on LH44, called LH, whatever they call themselves, for standing up for your driver and advocating for him. We're gonna say advocating because they reminded the Mercedes admin that they have gotten a trophy for this year and try to discredit Lewis's sprint trophy for the podium finish. And as they should. But other times, other fandoms, I'm like, can you guys like simmer down a little bit? It's just really unnecessary drama. And while it's entertaining, yes, it's just kind of cringe sometimes, but that just might be something at my big old age too.
So don't get me wrong, I do live for the drama as it adds spice, and it also pisses off a lot of people that say F1 is a serious sport when it never truly was. But it definitely shouldn't be as serious as some fans make it out to be. Remember, these are 20 millionaires driving cars in funny circles at the end of the day. And nothing more, nothing less. They're not saving lives.
And most of them are Nepo babies. Now, this one I feel like is very kind of controversial out of most of what we've talked about. Drivers shouldn't be allowed to skip any of the lower formulas. They should have to have at least one season in all lower formulas before they are allowed to be considered for an F1 seat. No more skipping.
This sport is not elementary school where you can easily skip kindergarten through fourth grade because you can read above a grade level. It's not. I'm sorry. And I just think it's unfair to the other drivers who have competed in the other formulas and did well and are waiting for an opportunity in F1. Literally, our reserve drivers are waiting for their chance. And there's so many. And I always say this, it's wasted talent going away. Hello. I mean, of course, we can get rid of some of the other drivers, but that's another discussion for a different day. I also just think it's not fair that the FIA chooses to conveniently change the rules to allow certain young drivers to join. I won't name any names, but the FIA will FIA when they wanna. I got it out for you guys too. Target on your back. Watch out.
See, no. I will name names. I do not care. Kimi Antonelli is too damn young to be skipping F3, let alone only doing a year in F2, where, by the way, he is currently in 6th position with 48 points compared to Paul Aaron, who's in 1st with 80 points. And we still have 9 races left in the season. You're telling me that you want to put somebody who's currently running in 6th position in a Mercedes and probably end up treating him like he's your number one driver? I beg your pardon. Absolutely not. Toto Wolff, you have done lost your mind.
Exactly. Please, for the love of God, no more skipping formulas. Just because someone has raw talent doesn't mean they should be moved up as fast as possible. I know Mercedes wants Kimi Antonelli to be the next Max, but, and I've said it once, I'll say it again, Max is truly in another league. He is an outlier. He is not the blueprint. And justice for Paul Aaron, my guy is also an F2 rookie, and he's leading the championship. Mercedes really fumbled the bag with that one. Just complete fumble. And you want to know what the difference between Paul Aaron and Kimi Antonelli is? Paul didn't skip the lower formulas. He didn't skip F3. He had at least one season, so I rest my case.
All of this. I mean, could I go on about Paul and Aaron and him being dropped by Mercedes and him now dominating? Yes. But I won't. Because skipping formulas might have worked for some drivers in the past. I mean, it worked for Max. But that doesn't mean it will work for everyone. And yes, we have this obsession with youth. But at the same time, they're literal children. Plus, wasn't the whole point of the super license, or at least its ties to a driver's driver license in its current form, for only adults to basically race? Isn't that why Lance and Latifi had to get US licenses at some point? Because Canada didn't agree to some terms, so they technically weren't allowed to race with a Canadian super license. Hence, all of this. A 17-year-olds shouldn't be able to race. And I'm going off of European / non-American age limits for driver's licenses right now, because that's what most of the world knows. Like, most of the world, you have to be 18 to even start learning how to drive a car. Some countries will allow you to get like theoretical portions out of the way at 17, but nothing else. If you sit behind the wheel of a car, you have to be 18, and that's how it should be in Formula 1 as well. I mean, historically, most drivers were older. Like, if you look at Fernando, if you look at Lewis, they were all well over the age of 18. And even further back, they were 21, 22, 25, etc. So, no kids in fast cars, please. Thank you.
Yeah, let's have a little bit more frontal lobe development going before we allow them to drive in like the world's fastest cars.
Yeah, please. And to close out the episode, we have a moment of the weekend for you. And that is Ferrari winning Le Mans this past weekend, making this a consecutive win for the team. Things we love to see, especially as a Tifosi myself.
Who doesn't love a hot take? We want to know your F1 hot takes too, so make sure to let us know on our socials. Everywhere we are Paddock Girls Podcast, except on Twitter or X, where we are Paddock Girls Pod. Thank you so much for joining us in the paddock, and we will see you in Spain. Adios.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.